Classic TV fans, Rick 9G here. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about I Dream of Jeannie, more specifically about the special guest appearance of Groucho Marx. It's also categorized as a cameo. So before we get into it, I want to thank all of you for supporting the channel and for hitting that subscribe button. I am on the way to reach 150,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. The only way I can do that is if you hit that subscribe button. Think about it. You probably watch the channel all the time. You've seen a few of my videos. Why not subscribe? It's absolutely free to do so. And let me tell you, it'll get me one step closer to getting to that goal. So let's talk about his appearance on I Dream of Jeannie. Now, the episode was called The Greatest Invention in the World. It's from season 2, it's episode 17, and it aired January 9th, 1967. Please be aware that Groucho Marx appeared at the end of this episode, and you could only see him for 11 and a half seconds. That's it. So I can't put huge clips of him in this or huge amounts of images, just a few. I'll just scatter them here, but most of these images will be about the episode itself. Now, what happens in this one? Well, Roger, Nelson's best friend on the show, wishes that he hadn't spilled coffee on Tony's jacket. Why? Well, his jacket becomes impervious to things like tears, stains, cutting, burning. And some of the best premise on I Dream of Jeannie is when Dr. Bellows gets involved. That's at least my opinion. And in this one, Dr. Bellows is the one who witnesses these miracles and has to prove it. Has to prove it to the general, has to prove it to everyone else. And he makes himself a fool when trying to do it, because essentially the quote-unquote magic never works for him, but it always works for Major Nelson. And so it's a hilarious episode, just back and forth, Dr. Bellows trying to prove it and him being unsuccessful each and every time. It's such a good one. But let me talk about the end, because we see that Roger wishes that he become the funniest man in the world. That's when all of a sudden he disappears and he turns into Groucho Marx. Now he appears and he says, "Hey, take a look at this," or "take this," and he gives it to Nelson, and then he hugs Jeannie, brings her really close, and then she goes, "Oh, Groucho." She says his name. So he's playing himself in this one. Now, you may think, of course, Groucho Marx was paid for his appearance on I Dream of Jeannie, only the fact that it was 11 and a half seconds. Well, that's incorrect. He was not paid any money. In fact, legendary Groucho Marx was pushed out of retirement. It was brought out of retirement because at this time he was no longer acting before the cameras for this cameo. Now, it was Sidney Sheldon, his neighbor, who persuaded him to get on the show. Now, why was Groucho Marx not paid? Well, not because they were mean to him, but he preferred not to be paid in cash for this brief appearance because he didn't want to pay taxes on it. That's what Groucho actually said. Could you believe that? Just because he didn't want to pay taxes on it. I think that's hilarious, but it's also true to who he was. So it's great. Now, as compensation, Sidney Sheldon wanted him to get something in exchange for what he did. So he said, "You know what? We're going to give you the state-of-the-art television." Of course, for 1967, it was an RCA colored television. And he said, "You know what? We're going to deliver it to your home, Groucho. We're going to have it installed and everything." So this man named Dick Albane, he was hired to go to Groucho's house. Along with Groucho, they discussed placement. They removed the closet door, and they even customized this type of console for an elaborate television system, which included stereophonic speakers and even a phonograph table. I mean, it was extremely expensive for the time. Now, Groucho even had an electric bed that went up and down. Yes, he was a man of luxury. But upon completion, the man who did this, Albane, invited Marx to come into the room to test out the equipment. Now, Groucho entered the room and he seemed impressed with the setup, saying, "Wow, this is pretty advanced. That's a good picture there. Give me the clicker." In essence, he was asking for the remote control. Albane said, "There is no clicker." Groucho Marx, "Wait, what do you mean there's no clicker?" "Yeah, there's no remote that comes with this." So Groucho asked if a remote would be installed or could be installed at some point. Now, for those of you who don't know, in 1967, it was a rare luxury to have a remote control. It was basically, I don't want to say it's non-existent, but it just didn't happen. Even if you had a lot of money, it's not as common as it was today. Now, Albane attempted to explained that he was not really authorized to order more parts. He was just there to install what they gave him, and that's what came from the factory. And the Groucho said, you know what? Then get it out of here. He didn't even want it in his house. So Albane had to leave with all of the supplies. He had to take everything out, uninstall it, disassemble it, and it was a crazy, crazy scene at the home. The problem was Albane couldn't really remove a lot of the stuff because he had altered his home and so forth. It was a big mess. So he'd gotten a call 2 days later and they were begging him, Albane, you have to get over there. You have to go to Groucho's house and pick up the television. If you don't get over there and get there soon, he's going to leave the television in the front lawn. He's not kidding. Go and get it. This man is giving us a hard time. So Albane ran to the home, removed the television unit, took it home, and returned it to the studio the next day. And guess what? He himself, Albane, purchased the set for himself. I mean, who else would have to purchase this to basically have Groucho Marx's television in their home after he rejected it because he didn't have a clicker? Now, if that isn't one of the craziest stories you've ever heard in Hollywood, I don't know what else is. I mean, for the appearance, 11 seconds. Look what 11 seconds did. I guess it bought Albane a new state-of-the-art television set. I hope you enjoyed this really cool anecdote from this really interesting episode. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think Groucho was a little bit, I don't know, a little bougie here, or a little too, I don't know, a little too pompous for his own good? Or was he entitled to get what he wanted? I mean, think about it. He wasn't paid 1 cent. He was compensated with his television set, this whole system, and it wasn't what he wanted. What do you think they should have done? I mean, essentially, from the story, we don't know if he was compensated. Probably wasn't. He was probably okay with it. I mean, Groucho Marx had the money. It wasn't a big deal. It's just more about the idea of what happened. I'd love to know your thoughts down below. Should he have given him something else? Maybe compensated him in another way that maybe was tax-free? I don't know. All ideas down below. We'll see you next time. Thank you for the support, and most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much to my supporters on Patreon, especially my Diamond tier patrons. New patron Gerard D, David D, Citizen Kane 359, Greg S, Kevin K, Ricky, Sally, and Vito L. Make sure to check the links in the description to see how you could be on this list as well.